will no longer hold myself harshly for what I now believe to be disgusting behavior. A product of that time and space, and use it as an example as how I can help to move ahead equality for humanity.
I was scared. I was scared that I was going to lose her. And so I literally, for the first time, I just bawled my eyes out and went to hug her. And I was like, I was scared. I was like, I had lost you. And like, that was a huge connecting piece where like, normally I would react in only anger because that's where I do feel safe. And instead I went like deeper into vulnerability. So I did, yes, right?
Wow. It just was one thing after the next in 2020 where I lost her, I lost my apartment at the time, lost a lot of my possessions, had to move 3 times. It was COVID, lost my job, had to take a bunch of shitty jobs, support myself because I didn't want to be on unemployment, benefits forever because that's just not a good look. And it's not, it's not a good...
my wife passing out there for 13 minutes, nearly dead, and I knelt at her side, and it was the water in the bottle that I opened and I put on her lips, and she was on the way of going out, like dying, and it woke her. That it was like that was the second most profound experience in my life.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Spiritual expansion, Soul Sauce Edition, Potluck Podcast. My name is Jason Kierce, and this has just been coming to me very, very recently about calling the house that we're in right now the Creation Station, and wanting to help facilitate other people to come here and experience high frequency, inspirational, creative vibrations amongst their energy field, and take that home with them and create things. So there's that.
I dig it.
That's good, because I need to get creative.
He needs a station to create it.
This is the Creation Station. Yeah, so that's what the name of this place is now. The Creation Station, and you guys are here right now on its, I guess, official inaugural launch.
Hey.
Yeah, how about a little finger snaps for Creation Station? Thank you all for playing. Let's go ahead and get right into the evening.
I should cut this chair right there.
Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for braving the weather to come and join us. Tonight, this is Soul Sauce with Spiritual Expansion at Jason's Creation Station. It's even better when you put your name with it.
Yes.
And thank you all. This is the second actual podcast recording of the new format we're doing for Soul Sauce. And we have introduced our share chair, or what we also call our soul seat. So the whole process is the same. We're all here just to share our hearts and our minds as openly and as vulnerably as we can. All the rest of us are going to do is listen as deeply, as openly as we can, really holding space for whatever you need to share with us, but also yourself. Because my favorite definition of intimacy is into me, I see. And when we allow ourselves to get vulnerable together, not only do we reveal ourselves to others, but we reveal ourselves to ourselves even deeper. So this is really about giving you a place to understand yourself a little bit more. And if we're lucky, this will be the last time tonight I sit in this chair. If not, I'll be happy to hop back in and tell some more stories. But we're really here to hear your stories and we would really love to dig in deep with you, as deep as you're willing to go.
I'm glad he's doing that now.
As deep as you're willing to go. And so one thing we've played with a lot is this idea of having a theme. And we really enjoy having a theme, but we always like to remind everyone it's a gentle theme. If you need to talk about something different, you are welcome to. But having a theme just gives us a place kind of for the conversation to start. And that's how we really like to see this, is just like a conversation, between souls. And so tonight, the theme is violation. And not just violation in a sense of how have we been wronged, right? Because we've all been wronged. We've all been violated, and emotionally or physically or sexually or spiritually, right? And so it's not just about how did someone hurt you, but it's also, we would love to hear about what did you learn from that? How did you grow? How did you heal that wound, right? And I wanted to start with a story that I would have told years ago very quickly, and with an invitation to talk about violation in my life. But what was really interesting to me is, as I felt into telling a story about this young friend of mine growing up, I realized that I didn't feel any need to tell the stories about him anymore. And that was really interesting to me, because I used to like bitch about him to anyone who would listen. I would tell this motherfucker did this and he did this. Like, can you believe that, And I would get all worked up and shit every time. And then one of my friends was like, I think you might need to do a little work on this dude, bro. like I think you might need to go inside and heal some wounds. And I was like, oh shit,
How old were you?
This was probably, late 30s, maybe early 40s when I had this realization. But so what was awesome is I have all these stories I could tell about how this kid Adam violated me growing up, and everybody we knew. Like, it wasn't just a me thing, it wasn't a personal thing. But I don't feel the need to anymore, and that feels like healing to me, and that feels like growth. And I have plenty of violations that I can share tonight if we need a little bit more, stories for filler or whatever. But I was just really excited to see that I healed this wound and I let this kid rest. He passed away in his 40s, early 40s, alone in his house with he got sick and died, and nobody found him for like 3 or 4 days. It was a very depressing ending. And it feels really good to have let this kid rest, because there's no reason to carry pain about it anymore. There's no reason to keep, rehashing that. And I'm really glad that I let it go. That being said, we do always have blindfolds. Jason got some new ones we're going to try out. I'm not sold on them, but we'll see. If you're in the share chair, please use it. If you're in the audience, you're welcome to just close your eyes, or you can grab a bandana or a blindfold as well. And all we're going to do is just ask you some questions. Just go as deep as you feel comfortable, and know that we're all here to just hold space for whatever it is that you need to share. Thank you so much for coming. Let's get going.
Bravo. Let's hear it for us.
Let's hear it for us. Jay, do you have something you could start us out with? So, Jay, is there anything in your life, any stories you can share with us of violation where you know that you were wronged by someone?
It's like a lot of images go through the head with very rapid time. And the violation that comes to most my mind is the one that is the ones that I've performed on others. Seeing how I am right now, all flower childly and hippie and whatnot, and awaken and aware, I can look back at my younger years and see how I was just a molded piece of clay by the society I grew up in, and having violations performed on me, and in turn violating others, and realizing what kind of a system or a cycle it is. They're happening to me, I'm doing it to them. Happening to me, I'm doing it to them. Until it comes to these days now, where I can sit here in front of people and talk about that period of my life being separate and distinct from where I'm at right now. And how much that I had to go through those experiences and give those experiences in order for me to know the further aspects of my own moral right and wrong. And promote and propagate the evolution, what I know to be more now a better way of living through consciousness.
Is there a specific story you can share with us of violation?
There's a groping story where I had some parties happen at my house, and I got drunk. I usually got drunk before everybody showed up so that I could be the party guy. Steve Martin was coming through that time. God rest his soul. And so me being drunk, outgoing, boisterous, teenage, young American kid, having grown up with all of the sexual aggression imagery that I absorbed at the time, felt like it was fun and cool and like a joke to just grab a girl by their tit and shake it around a little bit and make a comment about it. And then my friend, whose girlfriend it was, said, I apologized. I was like, oh shit, I shouldn't have done that. And then my friend, whose girlfriend it was, said, oh, Kierce, it's all right. I said, oh, it's all right, huh? And then I reached out, grab her tit again, and just start shaking on it. And now I think to myself, and I know that really made her feel uncomfortable. I know that she was degraded and demeaned, and I felt like I was having a happy, jovial time. And I realized that, okay, I will no longer hold myself harshly for what I now believe to be disgusting behavior, and know that it was a product of that time and space, and use it as an example as how I can help to move ahead equality for humanity beyond women. You know, I was at the UPS store today, and there was a person next to me dropping some stuff off, and there was the checkout person or the clerk that was kind of happy and jovial and turned to the other person and said, "Are you trans?" And the person very confidently and very quickly said yes. And it looked like there was a really interesting exchange of newfound respect that I enjoyed being a witness of.
Thank you for the vulnerability of that, and I feel how important that lesson was for you. Has anyone ever violated you?
Sexually?
in any way, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually?
Yeah, I feel like it was a common occurrence in my upbringing, being violently punished, um, uh, made to believe things that I knew were true to not be true, or having the attempt to convince me of something that I know to be true is not true. And just having that be like a repeated sort of bit of my upbringing.
Like gaslighting.
Right? Right? Like a big one that I remember learning early on was smoking pot, and how my family tried to attempt to raise me to believe that if I smoked pot, that I was going to become a loser, a burnout, a dropout, a piece of shit, just a lower level person of society. And then when I had it, I realized, well, wait a second, if that's totally not the case. I feel totally fine. I feel inspired in so many different ways. So then I start thinking, okay, well, if they tried to lie to me about that, what else did they try to lie to me about?
What else did they lie to you about?
I'm going to even go back further, man. This whole Santa Claus bullshit.
The Easter Bunny is the one
Like,
that really
okay.
messed me up.
Tooth fairy.
Like, I mean, I'm coming to the conclusion that, like, I feel like kids don't need that stuff anymore.
No.
I feel like we're ready to move beyond all of these little childhood games and pranks and shit that we played on upbringing, because that was the mental development that everybody was at then. Well, now everybody's got an iPhone when they're 2 years old. So people's understanding of creating new social norms can happen much faster.
Anybody got thoughts, questions for Jay?
Yes, I do. So, Jason, our parents' relationship, whether our mother and father, in the living years, have such an influence on us. And even after their death, they influence us to our death. What's your relationship with your parents?
Yes, I have a very good relationship with both my mom and dad. And it is definitely great efforts through a lot of understanding and my own personal development, having gone through treatment to be like a huge turning point in my life, as to why I do the things that I do, and how I learned them, and how to make conscious shift in a new direction. So I only grew up with my mom and myself and my brother. And so like, I feel like we had a like high energy, turbulent, like mother son relationship. Still also loving, but also very erratic and turbulent in energies in numerous cases. And like I said, the violent punishing too. I totally would have the appreciation of what I experienced as a child, having my mom punish me in what she only felt was the best way that she could have come up with, rather than having any sort of other means or comprehension of psychologically dealing with a kid. We have a great relationship now. We chat regularly. We send text messages and pictures and videos, and she always wants to know what's going on, and I always tell her. And we have a lot of chats about the weather, both in Wisconsin and in North Carolina. And we also have deep conversations too. And my dad, I have kind of a time role reversal happening with my dad as compared to my mom. I grew up with my mom in the early part of my life, and now my dad is nearby, just up in Virginia, and we visit each other regularly and have great conversations. Whereas when I was growing up, only very sparse, brief conversations, and like nothing impactful in a negative manner because of a young, impetuous kid of the 70s who loved to fucking drink and womanize and shoot guns and do fucking stupid shit and get into fights and that kind of activity. So, all right. So there was that, and then watching and feeling my dad make a transformation into his golden years has been magnificent, because he rarely drinks anymore. He is able to have very deep conversation, spiritual, or philosophical, various other types of depth. So we got a lot to talk about all the time, and we will be starting a father-son inspirational workout channel on YouTube.
Awesome.
So we're thinking about calling it Boomer X, Boomer and X. I don't know. Any suggestions would be great. What do you got?
I was hoping for some takeoff of Sweating to the Oldies or something like that.
Okay, I am a big fan of Richard Simmons, but we're going to go in another direction.
Okay. Like, not that exactly, but kind of like that.
Yeah,
all right, anybody?
This is cute. Any other questions?
Do you feel like these things come up, every now and again, or do you feel like they're more or less gone?
Do which things come up?
Like the pain or the whatever. Like, does it ever come up in spite of all the growth that you've made?
The pain, no. The awareness of the experience pops into my mind on occasion, which I've released any sort of negative energy about, so then I can just have a conversation like this about that stuff.
Okay.
So, I mean, but if I did feel a residual flush of energy through it too, then I would be thinking, oh, well, I must need that for something right now. What is that about?
Mm-hmm.
Another new experience to learn from.
Are there any violations in your life? And you say you had several, but are there any in your life that you feel are harder for you to forgive, or that you carry a burden that has more weight on you than another type of violation?
That's a good question.
Because to me, you're a very happy-go-lucky person.
Mm-hmm.
Your spirit is in tune, but is there something that just flips your switch, or something that's hard for you to, like I said, put down or forgive?
Are there still demons in your closet?
Right.
Well, that is kind of what I was trying to get at, but I think you might have put it better.
Okay. Well, I will say that there are some things that I will not share about.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there are other layers, and I have worked through them pretty extensively, introspectively. However, not ready to bring them to any further than beyond that.
Amen. Good answer. Awesome.
I have a question
Yes,
too.
ma'am.
It's more along the I've struggled with I can relate with the smoking weed, and both my parents are, I love both my parents, and there's been a lot of growth myself with how I view them. However, it's just is there any boundaries that you place
with your family members that were negative about it that created healthier connection?
Yeah, I've got a really good example of how when I returned home from the Navy when I was 24 years old and in a massive state of depression, having gotten myself kicked out of the Navy for removal of the circumstance of my depression, and going back home and living with my mom, and feeling when we're driving in the car and knowing that her energy wants to start an argument, and having that calm awareness that mom's going to jack shit up and she wants to play and start an argument in the way that she thinks is what good, loving family members do to each other. And I look at her deeply and I say, Mother, I am not going to participate in reciprocating your negative energy. And she's like, what? Like, she don't even know what the fuck I just said. And it really like threw her way back in her chair. And she had to like recalculate everything that she was thinking and starting to feel. Because for mostly the first part of my life, did not reciprocate the energy, the negative energy that was our relationship for 24 years. So I became aware of the energy that I was receiving from her, and understanding why was I receiving that, because I had just gone through all of the same all of the same realizations of understanding why I was acting the way I was acting, why I was excessively drinking when I was excessively drinking, to be the life of the party, to be more outgoing, when I knew that I didn't even need it anyways. So in sharing, in communicating the non-responsive energy that I gave back to her, of more of an indifferent feeling of her energy, and letting her know calmly and politely that I was not going to participate in giving her back any negative energy that I was receiving from her. She had to let everything else go after that. And I had to let everything else. And then she was like, well, how do you start thinking this way? Like, what, like what they do to you in treatment. like this is a new way for us to both live our lives and be happier. And she picked up on that and resonated with that. And that's how we communicate now.
Can I ask one more question?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With the deeper layers that you don't want to share about, is there any in like the family dynamic where you've been able to compartmentalize things so you can continue having a relationship? Like that things that come up that you're like, oh, I can't let this go. How do you continue to have a relationship while those things are coming up? Like memories and stuff, and like...
Oh, because they are very few and far between. And to a high degree resolved. But not to 100%. So yeah, it can be what you call a compartmentalization.
Well, yeah, because, it's like I want to continue having a relationship with my family, but there are just some stuff that I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can get past this. Mm-hmm. But it's like the more I go into therapy and the deeper the layers, some of the layers are, it's like I don't really have to share it with them or talk with them through it, is what I'm realizing, in order like to heal from it. However, there are some things that come up that I'm just like, oh, like it really, and it blockades me sometimes.
Ooh,
being able to have a connection still while I'm processing deeper things.
Hold on to that, Savannah. Put a pin in that, because that is all good stuff for the share chair.
Totally.
Oh, for me?
Oh,
Okay.
for little old me, really? I get to do this too.
Okay.
Thank you, Jay.
Was there anything else?
Anybody else?
That was pretty good.
Thank you, brother.
All right. Wow, my
Joanna,
pleasure.
you ready?
Thank you.
Am I up already?
ma'am.
Or was that?
So, I guess on this topic, how do you... Violation is such a layered feeling, right? Like, at first, sometimes I don't even realize it's happened, or it happens so quickly, or some people in our lives or my lives, it happens so frequently where I'm just used to it, and it's almost like a conditioning, if you will. I am working through certain things as far as family members are concerned, violations, yes. But I've struggled with my memories. Only recently a lot of repressed stuff has come up, especially after my grandfather died. That was really difficult to process and go through, which is why I started going to therapy for the first time again in like probably about 5 or 6 years. I've had a lot of violations just from, I think, people misunderstanding who I am and what I need. I'm surrounded by a slew of extroverts in my family, and I am a incognito introvert just because I've had to be a lot of my life. A lot of people think I'd be really social because I'm good at it. I'm good at talking to people. However, I wouldn't say it's not my strong suit. However, it's not something that I go out of my way to do often. So, me going in my room as a kid and reading my book and being yelled at because I didn't want to socialize as much as the rest of my family, well, I would say that's a violation because, I want to have my space and be in my room and be introspective. I mean, they literally made it perfect for my little unknown autistic butt. I had a chalkboard on for one of my walls, and I could draw, and there was a lot of kinesthetic stuff, and there was a swing in my room, and it was a bunk bed, and I mean, hell, why would I want to leave my room, So I was very confused about that, about like the contradiction, I guess, of like setting up my room for me in order to spend time in it, but then getting yelled at for spending time in it any other time other than sleeping, which, I don't know.
Yeah.
That was weird. Like, I always thought that was odd to me, and just things like that where it's like, I want to hang out and do my own thing on the beach, and, I'd get yelled at for, oh, well, why don't you go play with your cousins, or why don't you go do, and it's like, it was always like, why don't you go be more social, and that's not what I wanted to do. And then when I argued about it, it was just like, and, my parents were just, there was no ill will that they were intending. I don't think, either one of my parents, especially my mom, who is a highly social person. My dad is too. So is my older brother. So it was just kind of like a given that that part of me didn't get acknowledged, because of the age closeness to my older brother and how he was. It was just kind of like I always piggybacked with him on things. And I don't know, I think being younger or second born or super close to a sibling can be difficult sometimes because you kind of get like grouped together almost.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and you don't get seen for like as being an individual. It's like Nathan and Savannah. Like, I rarely heard my name without my brother growing up. We were homeschooled together. It was really the only peer that I had, closeness wise for me. So, it was kind of like the violation of not having much any space to build my own identity and my own self-identity, and having it so tied in with a sibling that was very different than me. So that would probably be my like most deep-rooted violation. As far as sexual violation or anything like that is concerned, I don't really think, I've been lucky as a woman, that I have had an older brother in my life that was very close and protective of me. I've been lucky that I've had really great male friends in my life that other men have not even thought about that for me, which I'm also grateful for as well. So, you know, I do know that collectively, group consciously, I do carry a weight of that, only because even if I don't get physically violated, it doesn't mean I didn't get catcalled at 11 years old as a woman. I got catcalled more as an underaged kid than I do now as an adult, which that's a little concerning to me, on multiple levels. You know, I do carry that, and I do acknowledge that for other women. I just can't speak on the experience, but I thought I'd want to at least kind of put that out there as acknowledging that is a sense of pretty group conscious violation that the women do struggle with heavily. I've had more of my friends than I can count struggled with it and have been very, very affected by it. Some of my family members included. So,
can you sum it up?
You know, there's a lot of family molestation, sexual abuse, loyalty to family members instead of belief in kids.
Yeah.
Worrying about, oh, well, you know, what's going to happen to that person if they get in trouble for this, and not validating the child coming to you, especially in my mom's generation, my parents' generation.
That happened in my family. Exactly.
Yes.
Like what you're talking about too.
Yeah. And I think I'm blessed, and the generations younger than me are, to be a little bit more protected from that. But, you know, there's the Generation X where they're latchkey kids, you know, so the parents weren't home, more space for things to go down, more space for things to happen, and more space for inaccountability to happen.
Mm-hmm. This is the new generation.
Yes. Where we not even just call out, but just like listen, you know, and understand that these secrets that happen, and that's a generational thing, let's sweep this under the rug, and that just doesn't happen for, you know, sexual stuff. It happens for, you know, we're expected to lie for a lot of stuff as kids.
Taxes.
Right. You know, I mean, it's such a double innuendo in society where it's just like, oh, well, you're supposed to do things this way, but then here's the loopholes that you can do. But if you choose to do those loopholes, then like you're a bad person. And I'm like, but why? Like, if it's available, you know, it's like, why do that to people where it's like, well, let's just be straight up and honest about all the options, all the things that went down, and let's not violate each other's like intelligence by gaslighting each other on, oh, well, your experience isn't valid because it doesn't line up with my view or my perspective of how I want to be viewed, or I want my family member to be viewed. It's like,
it's the filters in which we perceive reality.
Right.
You mentioned gaslighting as one example. Is there a specific way that your family tended to violate each other that was like your family's key signature?
Oh, yeah. I think it's more along the lines of when a fight does happen or when a disagreement does happen, we do not go to revisit it or rehash it out.
You have to pretend it never happened.
Exactly. And that has been a really hard form of gaslighting that has happened for a very long time in my family dynamic, only because it was unsafe to be upfront for a very long time because of how volatile my parents were throughout their divorce with each other. Like, you had to withhold information. We could not readdress things. Cops got called. We got moved around
Physical
between
violence.
houses. Yeah, there's a lot of that. A lot of being pinned between my parents. No fault of theirs. That was just where they were at. It's just how angry and hurt they were. But it was me and my siblings, there's 4 of us, got caught in the middle of a lot of it, especially me and my older brother. And that was that form of, oh, don't tell the cops about the abuse that's happening in the household because you might get taken away. And then that means that you don't love me. When it's like one parent's trying to protect me, the other one's trying to be dishonest, or vice versa. Like, they both did it. I mean, so it's in different ways. They both tried to withhold information from the other, which caused me and Nathan to hear this information and it's a form of dishonesty, and you're expecting me to lie or withhold information that could damage my other parent.
What's the lesson in it from all of that?
Thankfully, my family has grown a lot. My dad and my mom actually have a very good standing relationship now. Kind of really close friends, actually. They were successfully co-parented, both my little brother and sister, in their middle school and high school career and beyond. So I'm thankful that they were able to heal enough for them not to see as much. I'm thankful that they've both grown, and I think there has been a lot of healing that has happened because of us finally shining the light on, hey, this did happen for the first time in a really long time.
Amen.
Which is crazy because my brother just got out of prison, and he's really on a good path, I think, to being truly clean and coming around. And I don't think our family was ready to support and receive him in the way that he needs now than we are now. And it's because we've all been going to therapy. We've all been talking about the hard stuff. We've all been working individually. We've all been working on our mental health. 2 years ago, when Nathan wanted to do it that first time, it wouldn't have been successful. Yes. So
bring it. Yeah, everybody. That's
yeah.
it.
So I think that's growth in and of itself.
Y'all sit in a room together
We
for
do.
therapy?
We're getting there. We've done it on a video
That's different.
chat.
Okay.
I choose not to do it with the energies in the room just because I can, I'm a little bit hyper vigilant when it comes to both of my parents' emotional states. And when a shift happens, I feel it heavily. So I choose not to really do it with them being present. However, it does help to kind of
the safety of Zoom.
Yeah. I've talked with both of my parents about, we're not going to have these kinds of conversations unless it's in therapy. Because
That's
some
great.
some are just too hard for me. And that's been a really hard boundary that I've placed, but I've seen it come to fruition, which, as far as violations are concerned, I was asking about the boundaries, because it's like, how many times do I keep having to reinforce the same ones? And I'm like, when do I give up? And I'm like, I've been talking to my therapist about it, and he was like, well, the more your perspective changes, then the less you have to compartmentalize the relationship. And I didn't really know what he means. I still don't, kind of, but I do see a lot of healing and growth between me and my mom. Whereas before, when I moved out of her apartment, I didn't think that her and I were going to speak again. I felt so violated by what she did. She moved all of my stuff out of the room that I was staying in, packed it into a storage room. She thought she was being helpful. It triggered me so, oh my God, it just sent me. It sent me. And yeah, I didn't talk to my mom for about a month, and I was just starting to go to therapy at that point. But you know, I've been literally, instead of just telling myself stories about why I think she's doing what she's doing, I straight up ask her now.
Nice.
I'm like, why do you come over and clean? Do you think, is it because I'm just like incapable? Or, you know, it's like, I literally tell her what stories I tell myself too. It's like, this is what I'm thinking. Am I right? Because like, I need clarity here. And I think that's been the best thing for us.
What are some of her responses? Is she
Um,
responding?
Yeah, you know, I think the ways that I've been trying to say is like, sometimes I don't need solutions. I just need you to hold space for me. You know, she always tries to fix something.
Yeah,
Both
that's a big one.
of my parents are fixers. And so, you know, she's like, well, Savannah, I have a really hard time holding space emotionally. She goes, but I know you're going through a depressive, you know, it's seasonal, you're changing, like a lot of things are changing, got a new place. She goes, so I'm not coming over here, and when I just automatically start to clean a little bit, it's not because I think your place is a mess or I think that you're incapable. It's just, it's one thing that I can take off of your plate. And it's like, wow, how angry was I at receiving support?
Yeah.
Just trying to help.
Right, right. Talk about a self-identified violation, you know, over nothing. You know, I thought she was violating my space, and oh, how dare you come in here and clean? And I'm like, dude, that's how she's showing you that she loves you. So what is it in me that is so, that where is it that is like, I still have something up about receiving her love or about receiving love in general. So that's still a me thing.
Yes,
You know, that's not a her thing.
So speaking of that, can you tell me if there was a specific emotional or spiritual violation that you know followed you through life that affected who you became?
Ooh. A spiritual
Or emotional violation that affected who you became?
Yes. And that is my choice in religious violation. You know, yeah, it was, of course, you know, when I'm 5 years old and this is getting, yeah, of course I'm going to accept Jesus into my heart. And, you know, I'm lost as a young adult, and I'm going to try to seek that and lean on that. But I think the biggest violation that I felt, and I deeply felt it, I remember this place and the time, I'm about to cry, when I realized that the God that I had perceived and was taught wasn't real to me. Now, I do believe in a higher power. I'm an omnist. I believe there is truth in all religions. I believe that all of them are valid and we're all seeking the same thing. However, omnist.
What's its definition?
Believing that all
There's truth in all religion.
are seeking truth.
I'd heard as universalism.
There's different, you know,
Okay.
different definitions for the, I just respect all religion. And I think that I don't withhold myself from seeking spiritual guidance just because of a specific text. Like if I find God speaking to me through the Bible, then so be it. If I find God speaking to me through the Quran, then awesome. You know, if I find God speaking to me through the homeless man that I'm talking to on the side of the street, then cool. Like, I believe God is everywhere and in everything and can show up everywhere, including in myself. So, you know, I'm not gonna be picky about what other people want to share about their spirituality with me. I just like to listen and talk about it. However, I do remember when my perception of what I was taught, I realized didn't align with me. And that was Christianity. And I collapsed in the middle of my kitchen. And I was sobbing. I cried out, like I was screaming, like, it's not real. It's not real. It's not real. And I was all alone. And I don't know who the fuck I was talking to, but I mean, whatever, the universe, if you will. And I remember feeling just like it was my religious death, my religious ego death was one of the, and it fucked me up. It hurt me for a really long time. That's when I got really deep into my drinking because of that loss.
So it was a one-day experience that snapped the whole thing? Is that right?
Yeah, it wasn't even an experience. It was just like I had asked myself, and I don't even know what prompted this question, like, is this something that I believe? And when I really thought about it, I was like, this isn't for me. And the way that it was taught to me, like, I do believe in Christianity. I also believe in Buddhism, and I believe in Taoism, and I believe, it's like, I subscribe to all of it, only because I believe that there is wisdom in everything. And if I'm going to withhold myself from that wisdom, then that's silly. And, looking at Christ or God or Jesus consciousness through a pinhole does me no service, or anyone else for that matter. I believe God is bigger than the box that we have put him in.
Amen. Does anybody else have a question for Savannah?
Well, I guess kind of a corroborating statement. I think it's the Thomas Aquinas quote about trying to understand the mind of God is like trying to put the ocean into a cup.
Yeah.
So
you're never gonna get the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'd rather.
The cup is the universe.
Right.
Well, and also I relate a lot to what you were going through because I was homeschooled too, and I had an older brother, and religious upbringing and everything. So,
oh wow!
Yeah.
I didn't know any of that.
You
That's
guys are
cool.
both Southerners.
Might have
Yeah.
Well, technically,
both my parents are from Michigan, so I don't know.
my parents are from Kansas. And
Hey,
Colorado, so,
Midwesterner.
yeah, I was born in Little Rock, so I guess technically I'm a Southerner, but don't really feel like it.
Right. I was born in California, dude. So that
We're all spread out.
Yeah, I know. I claim California more than I can claim Michigan or Charlotte, for that matter. I'm like, it's a vibe.
Yeah.
It's a spirit.
Savannah, can I ask, what is your therapy schedule like?
Woo. Well, it's once a week right now. This week it's been twice a week. I actually just left my therapy appointment now, my second one for this week. I randomly, desperately scheduled one on Wednesday because my brother came back into town on Monday night, and I hadn't heard from my mom, and my brother was staying with my mom, and I couldn't get in touch with her, and so then I had a panic attack, and we had just talked about making sure that we communicate with each other, and she wasn't communicating with me, and so I showed up at her house or apartment worried about her because I couldn't get in touch with her, and she wasn't there, Nathan wasn't there, her apartment was unlocked, and it was midnight. So here I am, sent into a panic. I had a whole emotional breakdown over it. Found them in the game room. I was gonna yell at my mom, and then I moved into what's deeper than that, because we all know anger is a secondary emotion, and I was like, I was scared that I was gonna lose her, and so I literally, for the first time, I just bawled my eyes out and went to hug her, and I was like, I was scared, I was like, I had lost you. And that was a huge connecting piece where normally I would react in only anger because that's where I do feel safe. And instead I went deeper into vulnerability. So I did, yes, right?
Wow.
I did talk with my therapist about that, and some of the stories that I told in my head. But we're doing a sand tray exercise right now, and that's what we're kind of working through on a few different things. So that appointment basically was just all about my panic and emotional dysregulation over that situation. So today we returned to the sand tray, and I like that exercise just because it's like subconscious.
What's the sand tray?
And it's like he gives me all of these little like figurines and like blocks and like leaves and like then in a sand tray. And so like while I'm talking with him, I set up the sand tray and just kind of mess in it. And then like towards the end, he'll sit there and observe it and like ask me about parts of the sand tray that like stand out to him or why it would be significant or it being similar to other sand trays that I've done. Just like an exercise on bringing subconscious stuff out into the surface.
Is that the thing that has a little rake?
Yeah. It's almost like a Zen board, but like with like at like figurines and action figures and like I mean I kind of thought it was stupid at first and I was angry about it because I was like, when does he think I'm a little kid? I'm gonna sit here and play in a sandbox. But like I think that's what he's trying to do is like do it in a way where it's play, so then I can like bring out some repressed stuff from my childhood.
Yeah. Also,
So
it keeps your conscious mind occupied, so
Right.
the subconscious can really come through.
yeah, and so it has been fruitful, surprisingly.
It's like gamifying consciousness.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's like a workaround for that because I did struggle with like, you know, I would only start getting into the deep stuff in therapy like probably about the last 15 minutes. You know, at first it was
Then
like
you need another
masking.
2 hours.
Yeah, you know, and so now we have an hour and a half and we make sure that we compartmentalize it and like kind of stay on target and you know, we have things of focus more, but I think with therapy the best thing that I can tell people more about it would be just to like work with the therapist on what your needs are and like take over your therapy, like not like take the driver's seat of it, you know. It's like these are the things like this year I kind of was like these are the things that I want to work through and work on. I'd like to start focusing on my eating, my eating like problems and disassociation that I have. Like I'll go days without eating and not even think about it unless I'm being social with people, which is a whole thing. But you know, it's just like little things like that where I'm like, I want to start moving away from this stuff or, you know, little things that I would like to start focusing on. I'm starting to bring my family members in every now and again. My brother is probably within like 2 or 3 weeks that's going to happen between Nathan, my therapist, and I. So that'll be nice. I'm nervous going to therapy with like family members, but I've done it with my dad, and that like we have the closest relationship. So I can only think that it would be great for everybody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully.
You are the leader of your family.
Yeah.
And yes, that weight that you feel is another thing called life.
Mm-hmm.
And you are the leader. They're learning from you.
I know, it's been so crazy, Jason, and you know more than most that it's like it's been a process.
Oh yeah.
You know, and there's been times where I've just wanted to tap out on certain relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really glad I pushed through them. And I'm really glad that I went deeper instead of running away.
Amen. Does anybody else have a thought or question? What is your greatest fear?
That everything that I have hope in or I have like put my trust in or I get excited about has been in the past taken or pulled out from underneath me. I guess my greatest fear would be to continue to make or give myself the opportunities and others the opportunities in my life for that growth to still happen. And I guess my fear would be that that fear of not knowing whether or not somebody or something's going to stay in my life.
The fear of loss?
Yeah.
And how does the fear of loss make you feel inside?
It tings on my abandonment wound pretty heavily. So I think the feelings behind it are, it's just old wounds that come up when that happens in my life now. And it's always deeper layers the more aware I am of myself when it happens. So it gets deeper every single time that it does happen, just because I've gotten deeper with myself. And I guess that's not something I can avoid because I want to continue to grow. So, yeah.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice. Anybody else want to hop in the chair?
Or is it just one question for?
Yeah, one that's
'Cause I was
lightning
gonna-
round.
I was
So
gonna
one
ask
question.
a question, but
Oh, well, if you have
was
one you
two.
want to specifically ask.
Okay.
We can break
We're
it.
all asking one
Yeah, that's-
person
that's
the
what I thought
question.
it was.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like one question. That's why I call it lightning round. One question,
Okay.
and then just give everybody a chance to hop
But
in.
Dane has a question.
Yeah.
But then a question.
Go ahead.
Well, do you feel like you've gotten to the point where your pain doesn't have to come up all the time, and that you're a better person despite having gone through the pain?
I feel like now in my life, when pain comes and depression comes and those voices in the back of my head get negative, I think nowadays, I don't think it'll ever go away. And I think the more I heal, I've been depressed about that. I actually cried about that the other day. I'm like, gosh, I've done so much and I still struggle with depression. I still struggle with these certain things that, like, I don't think will I ever be free from it. But now in the midst of a storm happening, in the midst of uncertainty, in the midst of chaos, internally, I don't feel that chaos because I know from past experiences that when I go through the valley, that's when I'm being pressurized for something great to happen.
Mm-hmm.
The diamond can only form when
Yes.
the carbon's compressed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, dear.
Yeah, thank you.
Lance, you ready?
I am good tonight.
Good tonight. All right, brother. Awesome. Is there anything about your life that you can share with us about violation?
Oh yeah, I've experienced that a lot. It's. I think life is ultimately change. I think we all know that. It's rarely is it change you want. It's always things you didn't ask for and you don't want, but you have to deal with anyway. But to corroborate the previous, statement, it's like I grew up similar. I was homeschooled. I had a very strong, religious upbringing that did influence much of who I became, for better and for worse. My parents were very, overbearing, but also because they cared so much. They were the kind of people that would, they would fight the battles that needed to be fought to keep me safe and that kind of stuff, but they also were not the most, I guess, emotionally understanding. They weren't particularly lovey-dovey or anything like that. I mean, they were devoted completely, but it wasn't emotionally validating or whatever. I would say they probably, they were very smart individuals. They weren't really into, sharing, caring, etc. But violation-wise, I think just gradually you have things in your life that get taken from you. So first it was, I grew up Catholic, and then we left in the wake of the Boston Globe scandal, and so that was kind of taken from me. We moved a lot of times, so there was never really a stable sense of home, because home changed every couple of years. And I didn't really have friends of my own because I was home a lot. So I just felt like I was deprived of a lot of things that I wish I wasn't. And then I finally get to college and I have the opportunity to make my own friends and to live my own life, more or less. And I have my best friend person I thought was my best friend who, basically told me one day in an argument to kind of win the argument. He basically was, I forget how we got on the subject, but basically I was saying, when people, I was echoing something my mom always told me, which is, Dane, when people get to know you, they really like you. And I was kind of echoing that to him. And he said, most people we know don't like you, and that he's had to defend me a bunch of times. And we all knew a lot of the same people. So I, believed him at the time.
Who said that?
My now former best friend. I haven't talked to him, and since then I cut him off after that. But it was one of those, like, I look back on it and I kind of know why he did, because he was just fundamentally jealous of the relationship I had at the time. But it was something that it caused a big wound in me, as far as like, because we knew basically the same people, but it was to where I could no longer trust people that I felt were, they didn't have my best interests at heart, clearly. And so it made me very distrustful of people's motives, and they can say one thing and mean another. And so that's another violation. And then probably the one that hurts the most still is my ex-fiance. I met her in late 2017, and I thought, and I didn't really like her at first, and I don't think she really liked me at first, but we kind of, through the course of circumstances, we kind of started to fall for each other a bit. And she needed a place to live, and I was happy to oblige her. And it just was one of those, one thing led to another kind of things. And we were in a relationship, and I thought at that time, I was so love struck, I thought that she was everything I'd ever wanted in a person. And then I think she got into the relationship out of convenience, and then she got out of it out of convenience. I mean, she basically said that she was going through a lot and needed to take a step back, which I thought was nonsense, because I was like, you should have talked to me, you should have let me in. That's what loved ones do. But, it was, and I'm not saying she was lying necessarily, because it may very well have been that, but it was just one of those, I'd been wanting this for so long, my whole life, really. There was never a time when I didn't want it, and I felt like I finally got it in such a perfect, package of personality that I thought was compatible with me, and I was attracted to her, and we had chemistry and stuff like that. And only for that to get taken away, that thing that I fundamentally did not want taken, after I'd had everything else taken, like my sense of stability, my sense of Catholicism has a lot of drawbacks, but one of the things that it has is you do have a sense of like forward progression of like, if you do these things in this way, then it's pretty good at that, and I don't have that. There's just a lot of things that I felt like were taken from me, and things that I didn't want to be taken from me. So it's been very difficult, but and it just was one thing after the next in 2020, where I lost her, I lost my apartment at the time, lost a lot of my possessions, had to move 3 times. It was COVID, lost my job, had to take a bunch of shitty jobs to support myself, because I didn't want to be on the unemployment, benefits forever, because that's just not a good look. And it's not, well, it's
Milked that.
well, and it's not a good,
Give me the money.
well, it's not good for your resume either to have a big gap. So that was the big reason.
Hey, it was COVID. We were having fun.
And I was not. I was trying to survive, and I know. Well, I was trying to survive. I was just trying to, and also deal with my broken heart. But then in the midst of that, and being just completely broken as a person, gradually some things started to happen where before I met my now ex-fiance, I had wanted at least one black cat, because I love cats so much, and I needed some being to love. And then lo and behold, 2020, the first one came to me. February 2021, the second one came to me. I didn't seek them out. They came to me.
That's just how crystals happen.
Yeah, it was really special. And then just gradually it was like I found a job that was better than the last one, and then the job I have now was infinitely better than all the other ones put together. And just so little things like that started to appear, and and not to toot your horn too much, but because of your own decorative sense, it was like, well, I could do something similar with my place, make it something special, make it particular to me, everything I care about and believe in.
Creation station.
A little bit. I think of it more of like a temple or a sanctuary.
Yeah.
Did you catch your Egyptian fixation from Jason?
No, that was when I was a little kid.
Okay, got you.
Well, everything I surround myself with now is stuff that I grew up with as a kid, or things that were like have stood the test of time, that cannot be easily taken from me. That's because like I used to put a lot of my identity into pop culture, and I feel like that also was taken from me in the sense of like things change, people stop making the kinds of movies that you want to see, or like things that people used to care about they no longer care about, etc. So it's like, don't put your identity in sinking sand or shifting sands, basically.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So you how long ago was did this relationship end?
Ended November 2019, and
how long did you guys date or cohabitate?
3-4 years ago.
Like since 2017 was the very beginning when I first met her.
And you said you still haven't finished grieving, correct?
Oh, it comes and goes. I mean,
Can you tell us about the pain of that loss? Like, what is the nature of it?
Yeah, it's basically, imagine being given everything you thought you wanted in a person, and then just having it taken from you. And like, the best metaphor that I always use was like, a hand is like holding out a toy that you really want, and it's like, you want that toy, you want that toy, you want that, okay, well, you can't have it, and it pulls it away. And that's how it has felt in my life when I've wanted a really loving connection with a special person after having been deprived of really great friendships up until my adult years, which now I finally am having friendships that I would say are genuinely good with genuinely good people. But like at certain formative times I didn't have it, or like the ability to have a real relationship did not have until college. Just a lot of key things that a lot of people take for granted I didn't have. Now I did have a lot of things that other people generally don't have, so it wasn't all bad. I don't want to misrepresent, but it
Question, Dane.
Yes.
So it's been, I think, about 3 years since you and your former have made your separate ways.
Yeah, like 3 or 4. I know it's one of those.
Okay, so
for the most part, it doesn't hurt as much as it did, because I do see her less than favorable aspects now, and also I see that I was less than favorable in certain ways. So it wasn't all her fault, I had certain things to contribute as well. But
how much can you quantify that it feels less damaging to you to think about this situation compared to the first time it happened?
Oh, that's easy. I mean, so when it happened the first time, I remember 2020 with the table read group, I was so raw even then. Like it was so. That was like I was operating at like 100%, or like maybe 90% pain capacity, and could easily get past 100% if talked to the wrong way or whatever. And now, like if I really want to, I can go back there, but nowadays it's more of like 5-10% about that specific thing. It's right. What bothers me more now is just the larger sense of, subtract 2 years because it was the pandemic, and what are you going to do? There's not a lot of realistic dating efforts that are going to be made during that time. But it's like it's about time to. Yeah, I hope I get a mulligan on that one.
Yes.
Hard to have sex with a mask on.
Yeah, or
or
the
meet anybody.
the full body,
Not according to the videos I've seen.
the full body, the full body
What are you watching?
the full body condom from Naked Gun.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's what I'm thinking. But no, it's subtract the 2 years. If those don't count, then it's like, okay, it's been maybe roughly 2 years. And it's like, yeah, it's about time to get back in that saddle with what all I know now. And, you know, I wasn't sinless in that whole thing. I don't think I had enough of a life of my own. I think I was trained from childhood to be emotionally dependent on other people in a way that I hopefully am no longer. I think that I, you know, didn't have hobbies. I didn't really have great friendships in the way that I do now. I wasn't taking care of myself in the way that I am now.
My
you know.
God, dude, you're gonna have to start releasing your nihilism.
Well, I
You're
don't.
doing fucking great.
I hope I don't have any nihilism anymore, because everything I'm about now is trying to fight against it, because I do see it. I'm glad you brought that up. I do see it everywhere in the world now, and a sense of hopelessness and despair, and everything that I'm doing and surrounding myself with now is an attempt to fight that inside as well as outside, because if you succumb to that, then you really do have nothing. And you know, so I'm just trying to have. That's a violation. But no, I'm a guest at your guest. Yeah, there you go.
He's not house trained, y'all. He's
No.
not body trained.
A cat would not do that. And we've got a cat. We've got a cat around here to show you the ropes, so you should be ashamed of yourself.
I have a question.
Yes, go for it.
Actually, you said something earlier before Jason said something that kind of was like, oh, yeah, that's right. So,
yes.
As far as the emotionally, what did you say? About, like, emotional dependency on others?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, how's the questioning in this? Do I still not to do introspective stuff that's going to lead them anywhere, or is it just kind of...
Frame it in the form of an answer.
In the form of a question that's asking his deeper truths, but not like you're leading them somewhere specific.
Not leading the witness.
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
So is there any time where that might have been, like, perhaps reversed in your life to where other people have depended on you for their emotional regulation, and it's actually that way around? Maybe like, is that a dynamic that you are familiar with? Is that,
if that is the case, then I'm not aware of it. Mostly because, so I was the youngest in the family. I was the kind of the bottom of the totem pole, if you want to think of it that way. My mom was the major breadwinner. My dad stayed home and homeschooled us. He was a former high school English teacher, so he had the skills with which to do it well. And obviously, he produced two high-performing kids, because we both went to UNC Chapel Hill, and both my brother and I graduated Phi Beta Kappa.
And your diction is impeccable.
Thank you. I try to have a big diction, but the way that it would work is that my mom would kind of dump on my dad would dump on my brother and I, emotionally, not literally. Get your head out of the gutter, folks. And then my brother would dump on me, and so I was kind of on the bottom.
Yep.
And it made it to where I didn't have anybody to take my anger out on, and so it kind of festered inside of me, and it's something I still struggle with a lot. Like, I have to hold back a lot of negative feelings because I'm not used to releasing them. But as far as, like, I think that the way that the power structure worked was that, you know, I felt more emotionally dependent upon my caregivers, and it kind of trained, you know, it's like you're responsible for trying to make your parents feel better when they're having a bad day, or like keep your mother's anger at bay or your frustration at bay, you know. So there's that. But then as far as someone else feeling that way about me, it's possible. I'm glad you said it, though, because it never really crossed my mind, but it is possible. And I mean, everybody does technically emotionally impact other people, so it's highly possible that I might have adversely affected someone in my care in a way that I don't even think about. It's highly possible. It's highly possible it was that way with my ex in some ways, even if I didn't know it. So
Right.
I'm not talking about like more of emotionally volatile or like
Yeah.
like I'm talking about like for my little brother, for example. He's also the youngest, and I know him and I've had a lot of conversations that are similar. However, I do believe that he got the brunt
yes,
of everybody's because it trickled down to him
yes,
from everybody.
My brother got the brunt of
Yeah.
everything too.
So it was like, my dad talked to my mom, and then my mom talked to me, and then
yeah,
I talked to Nathan, and then Nathan talked to Sierra, and then Sierra talked to Walker, and then
Right.
here's Walker hearing every single person's stuff on top of having to absorb it on his own,
It's
and
a
then
chain
hold
reaction
it.
of negativity.
Yeah.
yes, yes.
So maybe not like maybe the sponge.
Yeah, that's the good metaphor to use, which is
What do you mean this? The last person is the sponge.
He
Yes.
absorbs it all. He doesn't have anywhere to wring it out.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, it's a good
Well,
metaphor
then
to use.
I have a follow-up question to all of that,
Please.
and that is, now when you're experiencing angst, anxiety, depression, negative emotions, what kinds of things are you doing to put energy into to then convert that to positive?
Yeah, it's a good question. Sometimes I'm not successful, and I wish I could get more consistent about it. Because there are definitely days where I hit something very personal. Like it's more of like the sense of forced isolation and the sense of like everyone else has what I want when it comes to like a meaningful relationship with someone special. Like I always feel like everyone's got this and I don't, and what's wrong with me and stuff like that. I'm finding gradually that more people are in that boat than I thought.
Yep.
But the thing is that so some days I'm really bad at that. The ways on a good day, it might be that it either doesn't bother me that day because I've got other stuff going on, or I could, I have tapestries up now that are high art, very, there's a theme of ascension everywhere that I'm, in my place to try to keep me in that more positive state of mind, and also just making sure that I'm doing everything I need to do to be in the best physical shape of my life, and also to, I resisted therapy for, talk about violation. I resisted therapy for quite a while because in 2020, when I was in that really raw state, a therapist actually, like in our second session, he basically verbally attacked me, saying that, he was making all kinds of wild, unsubstantiated claims that were not, it was in our second session. He didn't have any evidence for it. And it was like really frightening and uncalled for when I was in a really raw place. So it made me not want to do therapy for a long time. But
Did you report him?
I burned him on Google reviews, and apparently I'm not the only one who's done stuff like that too. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's terrible. So just because someone's a therapist doesn't mean they're a saint. I mean, you gotta watch them just like you would anybody. But
they're all crazy too.
Sometimes more so than a normal person. But I found a good one finally. Someone who I feel like more or less seems to get me, or at least can nail me on some things. So that way, I'm taking care of myself emotionally and that kind of stuff. And
how about the answer to the question though? How do you convert all of that angsty negative energy to positivity now?
It's pursuing those things, and then also pursuing comparative religion, spirituality, just the idea that you're more than flesh and blood. You can embody these higher instincts, and you can set yourself at a goal that is greater than you are, and try to find some inner peace. It's something I'm still working out all the details on, but it's something that I feel like pursuing those three things in tandem allow for, you get a good seed bed in which positivity can grow for yourself and for others, and also just reminding other people that they are not worthless or meaningless, or that their lives have value, and that they don't have to succumb to nihilism and existential dread and stuff like that, which is everywhere in the world now. So
and he surrounds himself with ascension
yes,
energy, with tapestries and art, things like
absolutely,
that as well.
all of which are in that general theme. And also, like, I have custom printed pillowcases that are like Cupid and Psyche from Greek mythology, which is all about their romance was put forth by the gods in their infinite machinations, as they always do in Greek mythology, but it was something that it was a sincere love that they had for each other, and they had to undergo unbearable battles to finally win out, but they did. And it's one of those, you can get what you want most in the face of what struggles life may put in your way, or the immense blessings too, because it's not all one or the other. And I'm trying to look back on my life and say, this happened because of this needed to happen, or unexpected blessings can come about when you are in the midst of darkness, and just looking for that. So that trying to always foster that mindset every day.
Yeah, love it. Anybody else questions, thoughts?
I have one more thing to
Yes.
say, or more along the lines of like something that helps me. To your question, is that something that I can share?
Go for it.
Yeah.
Okay, so like there is like the themes of consciousness and like the themes of enlightenment. I think it's in the Letting Go book where it's like there's apathy, grief.
Yeah.
There's like I don't know if you've ever heard of it. And then there's also an emotions wheel that I refer to a lot because sometimes I can't really identify the core emotion that's happening. So the
emotional tone scale.
Yeah, it helps me because it has like the 5 core ones, and then it goes out a little bit further into more selected emotions that are you can pinpoint it. But for me, that's kind of helpful. And then that way, once I identify emotion, sometimes I can have a negative feeling to a good emotion because of my past experiences of it.
Yeah.
So even if I'm in a happy state, that happy state can sometimes cause me anxiety. So it's helpful to identify, hey, this is actually happy. I'm just having anxiety over it because
you're not used to it.
This is unfamiliar to me.
Yep.
So that's helpful for me. And then as far as like the themes of consciousness are concerned, I used to try to like get all into like power or like instead of force, and there's like the negative ones that are like you're in a force mindset, and then the positive ones are like you're in a flow mindset. So a lot of the times I'll try to hop from apathy all the way up to courage, and it's like I can't really do that. And so the one step up from apathy, that's what I go for. Like I don't go for like I have to be all okay. What's a better vibrational, like what's the one step up vibrational that I can work towards instead of like reaching for a crazy goal of like I'm going to jump from 200 vibrational to 8. That's unfeasible.
They talk about that in the law of attraction, to shoot for the state just above where you are, not like 5 levels above. Totally.
Well, so that's helpful for me to move out of it. So.
I'm glad you said that also, because there is I forget which, I have a lot of self-help books. There's one that has an emotions chart in it that's kind of like that, and then there's a book that has been going around TikTok a lot. It's The Inner Work that
I have that book.
Yeah,
I love that book.
Yeah, I have a
really helpful
physical copy, and I have the Audible version as well.
Have you read all of it yet?
Yeah, I have.
Nice.
What's the book?
The Inner Work.
I love it.
It's it would fit in well with the themes of this because it's very like Eastern philosophy /
spiritual workbook.
That's funny. That's actually a book that I was gonna talk. I was literally gonna say that to Kristen and you not too long ago.
But yes, I have read it through. I have read it through, and it's been helpful, and especially with identifying, because I have a friend that we talk about it all the time, and she'll identify which level I'm on. There are certain negative levels I can't quite seem to get out of, and she holds me to task on that, and it's something that I am trying to do. I'm a big believer in putting in the work to get to a better place from where you are at, and that's good when it comes to like things in the physical world that you can control, but it also has to be more mental, more spiritual, and I'm trying to make sure that all three are working for me and not one isn't pulling in a bad direction.
The divine trinity.
Yes, exactly.
Amen.
Great job, buddy.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Kind of
All right,
fits.
take a second and see if you got a question for Dane that you would love to ask to yourself.
So my question is, do you think that it's harder to recognize your own strength in yourself than it is for you to recognize it in others?
Yes and no. I think that there are certain areas of my life in which I think it's pretty clear that I either have just ability or that I have persevered in spite of challenges. I think I proved to that might have been more true in years past. I think that especially after 2020, I figured out what I was really made of and just what tough stuff I have inside. But at the same time, I do think there are certain areas of my life in which I don't give myself enough credit, or I'm too hard on myself, or I'm too not feeding positivity into that area of my life to where I can then spread it to other people. In other words, like, it's best to, a good example is like to speak about or write about or communicate about what you love as opposed to what you hate or what frustrates you or whatever. I find it very, very easy to say what I think's wrong with the world or what I would want to fix, etc. But it's also because, well, chaos, disorder, that is kind of the natural state of being, and it's something that it's easy to point that out. Everyone intrinsically knows that that's the case. It's a lot harder to build up. It's a lot harder to try to speak about that which you love and to provide a solution that is a celebration of what you love instead of just a criticism of what you hate. So, and also just not having compassion for myself in certain key areas that I feel like I could. So, still definitely work in progress on that. But I did figure out the hard way that, yes, indeed, I am made of tougher stuff than I thought.
Nice.
Beautiful. Learning everything you just described is the path of ascension.
Absolutely. Very important.
Did anyone else have a question for him before we switch? Don't want to short anybody. Okay, thank you, Dane. Thank you very much for playing along with us, Chris. We always say, like, the intention for the evening is always general. You can talk about anything you want. And violation is deeper than he needs to go right now, so we're
Right,
going to stay at a lighter level with him. And I wanted to open the floor with you, Chris, to see if you could tell us about the first memory you have that you know was a truly spiritual experience.
I was raised a pretty strong Catholic. Went to church with my two brothers. I have three brothers, but my two brothers, older and younger, Henry and Mike, and Rob is the youngest. He was too young to go with my grandfather. So we'd have suits on. It was mandatory. I had to wear a tie and a suit every Sunday, and it was very strong religious upbringing. But when I was 17 years old, it was like the first real experience that I had with, I guess, a higher level of spirituality. And it would be almost like, my first experience with religion, like true, I guess my own personal Jesus. It was the local, okay, yeah, so it was the local bus driver in the city. that I grew up in, and he just stopped me, and I was a porter at a hotel, and I'm vacuuming there, and besides bringing in people's luggage and stuff like that, he stops me and he said, he starts talking about religion, and it was the first time out of all my years of living and all the church, and it really hit me. The power of religion, the power of spirituality that I never got any time before that. Before that, that little preach or little enlightenment. And then every decade after that, I would have a greater experience with either spirituality, since my mom 35 years ago was a holistic, got certified holistic healer, Reiki healer. It's kind of just been in my blood of just greater spirituality. But it wasn't really until 2015 was my greatest experience of spirituality I've ever had in my life. It was at the local Arboretum Walmart. Who would have guessed, right? You go in there and you're like, oh, well, my hip's hurting that day. I can't really walk. But this group of 4 people from Hickory, North Carolina, come hour and a half drive to, Walmart to come find someone, apparently me, and 4 other people from Greenville, North Carolina, 4.5 hours away, drive all the way down to Charlotte Arboretum Walmart to come find me. And they asked me, they said, do you have like a pain? And I said, yes, I had I finally said, okay, I don't know who you people are, but I'm just going to take blind faith and share whatever your excitement is about whatever you're doing. They were spiritual healers from those areas, Hickory and Greenville, and there's throughout the world, right? We're healers in a certain sense. They asked me if I wanted to receive some spiritual healing from them, and it was the most incredible experience I've ever had. Adrenaline, euphoric, dopamine, any possible natural rush of endorphins that you could get from something. It happened then, August 2015. Just an incredible experience. This group, this is what they did. They would go around and spiritually heal. I didn't understand the power of the circle of a circle, and from the beginning of time, right? We've been gathering as tribes and circles, whether it's family or community, and the power of synchronizing energies and belief and feeling strong of what you feel. And this group felt the power of healing, and it was just absolutely, I'm standing on the ground looking down at my feet and feeling like I'm levitating 2-3 feet above me, and my body was just going to burst into flames. And I was pretty calm at that time, at that particular moment. And I just felt like incredible heat, and every hair on my body was standing on end. And it was just the most incredible experience I've ever had. It was better than and I'm a thrill seeker, I'm an adrenaline. I used to be in another life an adrenaline junkie, but I've just, it's superseded anything that I'd ever experienced in my life, ever. Really couldn't wait to get home to tell my family, and they were all looking at me like, what happened, Chris? Or Dad?
That was a legitimate spiritual experience.
For sure. It was just incredible. People that I've known for 10 years prior to that event, I go back to the soccer field to pick up my daughter, and I tell the story, but so emphatically, because this had just happened, and it took me weeks, if not months, to finally come down from that radiation. I mean, it was just incredibly fortunate that someone could experience something like that.
What do you think made it possible?
he's his name is Daniel Bryan Cook III. Was a healing pastor, spiritual healer, out of Hickory. He said at the end of that, and it was the most profound deja vu moment I've ever had in my life. He said it in slow motion, like I absolutely knew what he was going to say. And he said, "You have what we have, the power to heal."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "You're going to do great things." And, you know, I don't know. I knew clearly he was going to say, "You have what we have," the ability to heal. And it was just so profound that how he said it and how I knew he was going to say it was a lot of the experience in itself.
Because y'all were connected.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like why I'm here,
Mm-hmm.
how I feel other people's vibes, and almost like a higher level of consciousness, wanting that. But in 2015, this just came up upon me. I didn't expect this to happen. This group to just come, and heal me, because I was like on a scale from 1 to 10 in my hip, my right hip. It was like 8, 9 easy, and for them to do the healing chant that we had in the circle, and they said, "Here, is it okay if we just put hands on you and make like a motion towards your hurt hip?" And my pain went down from like a 9 to like a 2, and it was just such a body high and a spiritual high and like I felt elevated, and it was just it was like an incredible amount of energy in the circle at that moment, that it was just incredible.
You mentioned his name.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
this has been 8 years,
Mm-hmm.
and you very definitively mentioned his name as if he's on your mind fairly regularly.
I
Have you ever
texted
had
him
any other?
during the holidays. I said,
You-
"Hey,
okay, I was
happy
gonna say-
holidays," because I've been. You understand? Like, you're only lucky to feel this to
Is
get
he
to.
still doing what he
I
did to
don't
you?
know. I don't know. I asked him. I said, I said, if you are going out, I'd want to go.
Okay.
Because this was an incredible experience. I mean, it's just incredible. But the power of, like minds, and the whatever, and this is more of a religious group. Like a girl said, and who is his wife now, and that at that point she was just part of the group. And she's like, some people I believe are more gifted than others.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a lot of the source, like, and everybody has it, and especially collectively in a circle. But it was powerful.
Did they mention what kind of
Mm.
practice they follow or are creating?
They just spoke of like Jesus and God and religion.
Oh, okay.
And this is
So
what they said, they're like, Jesus, make this pain go away, and just like using like, proximal
okay.
energy and local energy, but just a incredible amount of energy.
Did like a group of people gather around you all at the Walmart?
No, just us. We went like in the landscaping in the back, and it was just like weird how we was like.
He meant the people working on you.
No.
Oh,
I meant if
yeah.
it was like like spectators. Yeah.
Right. It was like timeless, but it was timed. Like it happened, and it was like, but yet it was like timeless.
Are you talking about that landscape that's by the lake?
Mm-hmm. In the back, like it's like
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And,
I've had a weird spiritual, like a good spiritual experience at that very spot too. It was a very long time ago. It's probably like 2008.
I wondered if there was a cemetery built there before, because I think I may have told you two the story of, my wife passing out there for 13 minutes,
Okay, yeah.
nearly dead.
That's
And
right.
I knelt at her side, and, you know, it was the water that in the bottle that I opened and I put on her lips, and, you know, she was on the way of going out, like dying.
Yeah.
And it woke her. That it was like an incredible, that was the second most profound experience in my life.
That happened after you met with those people?
5 years later at the same Walmart.
Wow. It's
Did you use
at
the
the,
wa-
what? Okay.
Did you use the water from the
He just
lake?
did it at the same Walmart?
Same Walmart.
Did you use the water from the lake?
I was
Or
hollering
just a
for
water
a bottle. I said, call 911.
You gave
Stood
a
up.
spiritual experience then to your wife in the
Mhm.
same fucking
Healing
Walmart
hands
that you
where
had
you
the
got-
spiritual
oh my
experience in
God.
5 years earlier.
That's
Mhm.
so weird.
Mhm.
Quantum entanglement.
Oh, wow.
It
And
was
so
so
when
powerful.
they said you have it,
I got
when they
goosebumps
said you
now.
have it,
Walmart
now-
is the Messiah.
Walmart.
Oh my God.
I-
Thank you, Sam. You did it again.
Maybe.
Praise Sam.
Oh my God, dude.
There is something.
This is big.
I'm
there
telling
is
you.
something particularly odd, energetically wise, I will have to say, about the spot that he's talking about. It is profound. I have felt it at that spot before too.
Have to check it out.
Yeah.
Was-
Oh my
A
God.
vortex, or was it on a cemetery that there's spirits floating around
Idea.
that, you know,
What are they?
Field trip.
could be in,
Yoga.
Spot.
you know,
Trip.
Yeah. Soul sauce potluck. Spiritual expansion
In the
field trip.
Yes. That's right.
Walmart field trip.
there's
Yeah.
a lady that works there.
Sponsored.
There's a lady, an old lady, she's from Ohio. She witnessed the whole thing. This from my
Parapsychology
wife,
tour.
when I felt like it wasn't just me, I was part of her savior, but it was spirits. It was something greater than all of us. It was magical. It was powerful. As it was in 2020 December, that's when my wife passed out for 13 minutes, and you know, she was as white as a ghost. Her lips are blue, and she was going out. And I said, "Oh no, you're not." And I stood up and I said, "Call 911. I need a bottle of water." And what felt like 5 minutes was maybe, 30 seconds. I said, I need a cold bottle of water now. And I said it louder. And then, what felt like 5 minutes is I got the bottle and I unscrewed it and knelt at her side and dipped my finger in the water and put it on her lips. And it was the only little bit of life that she had hit in her. I saw her lips start to move, and she was white as a ghost. I've been over with her for 40 years. I've never seen her in this condition. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So I did it again and put it on her lips, and her eyes popped open from being not there to bing, like it was like lightning bolt.
Yeah.
And it was in the beginning at this customer service line in Walmart in 2020, and people are gathering, and it was like 5 people, and then 10 people, and then 30 people, and then 40 people. It's like, oh my God, what is happening here?
You're starting a following.
No, I don't want that.
Always the ones who don't want it that end up being the best people for it.
But it was like powerful. These are the 2 most powerful experiences of my life.
Yeah.
Walmart obviously needs a Reiki section.
Yeah.
It's great that you were able to utilize it, after having been given it those years ago.
Yeah.
So what
Mm.
do you do now? Is there any sort of regularity of whatever you learned that comes through in your life now? Or what
Yeah.
did you learn?
There's higher power that we don't know. Such great higher power and in us. That if we seek out good and try to tap into good stuff, like it will come to you. It will come in us, so we can radiate that and heal and help and protect, all of this. It's, it's a greater power than we know. We just don't know.
That is spirit. That is spirit. Testify, brother.
Any other questions, thoughts?
How did your religious upbringing feel, when you're seeing something new with something that you're already familiar with, like invoking Jesus and that kind of thing?
It
Did
reinforced
you feel like
it.
these things shouldn't go together, or like, oh, this is only natural?
It was like reinforced.
Okay.
But, I've always been a spiritual person. And maybe as early as 8 years old, 9 years old, I could envision myself as a medicine man. People, it depends on what you believe. I believe in reincarnation. I believe that, you can be reborn, and, uh, there's a lot of different things. But, I sure, I've lived another life as a medicine man or a medicine woman, where, we only go into the future, and you could try to remember or imagine the past, 500 years ago in your DNA, your gene pool, your tribe, your community, 1,000 years ago.
Do you have a specific memory of that or one of those kinds of past lives?
Like I said, Jason, it's, when I was like 8, and I have a good memory, so 9, 10, I could think of I felt that I was, a medicine man or medicine woman, from another life. And I was always intrigued by, psychic abilities, telepathic, but more so, how when we're like 12 years old and we hear about history that something is undocumented that happened in maybe, like a 9-year-old girl in Ireland would know about something that happened in, undocumented but documented in that country, for example, in Ireland, that happened in 1200, and it was local documents, it was local history, but it was, how did this 9-year-old know about something that happened in that region of the world, without knowing? And it's like,
She lived the experience.
Nice.
Do you have any other recollections of other lives besides the medicine man?
It's hard to say. That's probably the clearest that I felt when I was, and I'm going to say this, and I probably haven't said, when I was 10, I felt I moved something. I had the ability to move something, and I moved it.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what was it?
It was a scale. It was sitting on a sill, and there was no wind, but it was one of those scales, those old time scales for weighing. Yeah, and I felt that for maybe what it felt in my mind, 5 minutes, maybe a minute, but it could have been 30 seconds or 45 seconds that I willed it. I focused in on it, and I willed it to move, and it fell over, and there was no wind. So I was just puzzled me to this day. But
wow, when you were 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Have you practiced since then?
Yes.
No. Yeah, I don't know.
Make Lance jump out of his chair.
Lance, you're high energy like me. We're gonna jump out of our chair. That's all I got. That's all I got.
Dude, that was so fun, man.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, this is our second live recording, Soul Sauce. What'd y'all think about? It? This feels like something that's got a lot of legs, that like a centipede. So, anyways, we're gonna continue to allow Soul Sauce podcast to evolve.
Yes.
There will be many different twists and turns and ups and downs and elevations, and we're gonna see how this thing just wanders. So when we do have the the audio and the video podcast up and ready, of course we'll disperse that to everybody, and you'll become subscribers and avid watchers. Yeah. And you'll share with everybody else, and we will help to expand this layer of consciousness. Also, for your facilitators tonight and Big Love Yoga Barn, which we are getting ready to move into a new location. We need a bunch of money to make this happen. Please send your donation to any of these normal digital methods, PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, Cash App. Come and get some. It goes to your facilitators, and a portion goes to Big Love Yoga Barn. We're raising a bunch of money so we can help to create a whole new conscious community space for all of you and everybody else. Love y'all.
Thank you, and thank you all for sharing.
Yes.